Um, and with that in mind, if you do not feel comfortable with your face being on camera, you can turn your camera off. However, we do appreciate those if you can leave your camera on if you feel comfortable to do that to build community and human interaction with your peers. So today's session, we'll have a presentation for the first part and then a question and answer part following that. And at the conclusion, we will put a feedback form in the chat and that we encourage everyone to fill out. First, it will give us feedback for how we did. And then second, it'll also provide us a record of who was here for today if that information is ever needed. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Pelley to start our presentation today. Jeff.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Scott. It's nice to see everyone, albeit virtually here. Many of you, I've interacted with in the past, and for those of you who are brand new to me and to IU17, welcome. We're very happy to have you here. First and foremost, I just want to send well wishes to you all and your families with everything that we have going on. I am a creature of habit and a creature of routine, so I am very excited to be back presenting. Again, even though it's virtually, but it feels good to kind of get back on that horse, so to speak. I'm going to begin to share my screen here. And if folks in the, not in the chat, but folks with the floating Brady Bunch heads there, if you can give me a thumbs up. If we have Scott, give me a thumbs up. We're sharing. Okay, awesome. So first and foremost, again, Scott introduced me. My name's Jeff Pelley. I work for the IU. Prior to being the transition consultant for Intermediate Unit 17, I was the autism consultant for a number of years. This is my third year doing secondary transition. I have never said that I'm an expert in anything in life, and my wife will be the first one to tell you that as well. But if I don't have an answer for a question that you might have on that worker bee, that can help find that answer for you. So I just want to let you all know that once we get to that point of sharing information and asking questions, we can take that question down and get you an answer if we do not have it here live today. In the chat link, we sent multiple links to the presentation. So I have a PDF version of the presentation, and I also have a PowerPoint version of the presentation. I'm a Mac user, so sometimes the PowerPoint that I use doesn't transfer over completely to a Windows machine. So those will both be for you if you need to download those. I'm just checking off my to-do list here. I'm going to pop my presentation into full screen here. So just one more thumbs up if that's looking okay on your screens, folks. Awesome. Okie doke. So what we're going to do today is consider the current state of affairs that we have with we're all working remotely, but that doesn't mean that instruction stops, and it certainly doesn't mean that instruction to our friends with disabilities stops. And it certainly doesn't mean that instruction to students who are of transition age needs to stop. So our objectives today is just to simply share some resources that are going to support you all as professionals to support those special education students ages 14 through 21 while we have limited access to the school and the community. And we also want to get that community opportunity from those of us that are on the Zoom today to make sure that we can network with one another. I know that we have some different agency friends represented here from the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, Mental Health, Intellectual Disability offices, some CTE organizations, school district friends, IU friends. So we all have many, many different backgrounds, and we can network together towards the end. And I also want to always give a shout out to our friends at PATN. That's the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, as well as the National Technical Assistance Network on Transition, better known as NTAC. NTAC, which is these folks here, had a wonderful webinar about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that really hit many of the points that I'm going to share with you today. And I have that information linked later on in the presentation. And PATN are kind of the folks that govern some of the work that I do, and they have been wonderful sending me some information to roll out and pass along to you all. So I've always been a firm believer in not reinventing the wheel, just simply being a venue to share some information. So I want to make sure I give a shout out to those folks that helped with this presentation. So we're going to get into it here. And first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're giving a disclaimer here. This information that we're going to share today is just that. It's information that we're going to share. It's not something that we want to stand on a platform and say, this is what you must do. Many students of transition age have certain things written into their IEP. A lot of students, case managers are doing review and revisions to those IEPs with the COVID-19 crisis, making sure that instruction is going to continue, but they're specifying exactly what specially designed instruction is going to look like, if there are any changes to any goals and objectives. That all has to be guidance under IDEA. And the next slide here links you to some information from the OSEP, the Office of Special Education at the federal level. They have a question and answer session right here. My cursor is highlighting over it. And we also have the link in the presentation. The presentation links both, you can copy and paste the link here, but you can also click, once you make this full screen on PowerPoint, these slides are clickable as well, and that will take you to the question and answer if you have any concerns on actual guidance for providing instruction to students with special needs. And the next one here is the Council for Exceptional Children. They provided a wonderful webinar. I believe the IU also gave some information from the Council for Exceptional Children on how to instruct students with special needs. So that's going to be your go-to as far as if you need guidance for, that rock solid IDEA type of questions. That's where you're going to go for those. So now we're going to jump into actually what transition is, and we always go to IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disability Education Act. And basically, I'm going to just highlight the bolded statements here. It's a coordinated set of activities, and it always comes to fruition when we talk about secondary education. Could be, college, could be vocational training, but also employment and then independent living. Those are the three areas that we want to talk about when we're thinking about secondary transition. And we always call it the coordinated set of activities. And when I train folks in transition, I always get excited because it says a coordinated set of activities. And that is a very loose definition about what actually needs to be done. So those of us that are case managers who are implementing some of these coordinated set of activities during this COVID-19 crisis, that term there is pretty loose, where if you have to readjust some things, you're going to be okay moving forward. And a lot of the recommendations that we have in the presentation today would fall under this coordinated set of activities to make sure that you're still able to provide services to those students. So when we talk about transition, we also want to make sure that it's a coordinated effort. And first and foremost, it's always going to involve the student and their family. It's also going to involve the LEA, which is the local school district, and that could be the special education case manager. It could also be the director of special education. It could also be the guidance counselor, general education teachers, many friends that are in that district LEA setting. But then we also want to make sure that we have coordination from outside agencies. And you'll notice that we have asterisks on all of these here because it's going to be applicable to what the students' transition goals actually are. Not every single student is going to need the county mental health office. Not every single student is going to need the county intellectual disabilities office. Not every student is going to need, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. But these are all good starting points for you to network and make sure that these agencies are at least aware of that student and seeing what that individual student's plan is going to be. There are some other agencies such as the Pennsylvania Career Link and also job coaching agencies. With the current COVID-19 crisis, I know OVR is up and running, doing things remotely, and when we have our question and answer session a little bit later on, we can chime in and hear from some of our friends from OVR to see how they're doing things. Same with the Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities Office. But these offices are still running, but again, most folks are working from home. So then when we talk about that coordination, it leads to the 3 individualized goals, and that comes from the IDEA statement we saw a few slides ago. And again, it goes down to education and training, employment, and independent living. Those are the 3 areas that we want to focus on. So how are we going to work on these goals doing it from a remote setting, because all of our schools are closed indefinitely, and as of 8 p.m. last evening, most businesses are closed unless it's an essential service. So we're going to jump into some of the things that we feel you can do to support these students from a remote setting. And that would be using time to do assessments to address interest and preference. And these questions here come from our friends at NTAC. And we want to really talk about how can we identify the unique strengths that that kiddo has, their talents and their interests. What are their future goals? What do they want to do 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? What are some of the demands that I can meet now? What are some of the things that we struggle with during day to day? It's always good to find out sometimes what you can't do and sometimes what you don't want to do. We also want to make sure how will it make things hard for me to reach my post-school goals? You know, if there are certain barriers that the student needs to overcome, assessment is going to help you. And then also, what are some options that we have? You know, many of our districts in IU17's borders are very rural, so there are not as many opportunities as they would have, say, in, you know, Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. So we really want to make sure what is going on in the community. And to do that, we can use many different assessments. So the first one that we have here, and again, once you have the PowerPoint there, these are all going to be clickable links for you, or you can copy the link here. But using PA Career Zone, and if you're a case manager of a student, you can help the student make sure that they have an account. You can make sure that you're walking them through, you know, what assessments they can be doing. You know, say for this week, we want you to focus on, you know, these 3 assessments from PA Career Zone here. Then you can have a Zoom with them and share, you know, have them share with you exactly what they found out from the assessment piece. The next one here is called the Pennsylvania Career Zone Up the Ladder. And Up the Ladder, I like to say, uses the, you know, guts of the actual PA Career Zone, you know, the gears there. And there are many different types of media that is within Pennsylvania Career Zone, but for a learner that might not be a reader, you know, or read on a significantly lower level than some of their other peers, Up the Ladder is going to be the assessment that will most likely work well, because again, it uses that engine of Pennsylvania Career Zone. However, it uses it in a much more user-friendly way. For example, if you're going to hover over architecture and construction, that user can turn on the voiceover feature and would actually read these words to the user. Then when you click on it, it's going to show you the same media from Pennsylvania Career Zone, but again, in a much user-friendly fashion. I like to bring us back to the year 2007 when Nintendo first launched the Wii. Raise your hand if you can remember what that Wii was, right? We all remember making the little avatar with your Me people. I'm actually using that with my daughters now. I busted out our Wii Fit board to keep them occupied. But a user can go on, a student can, you know, design their actual avatar there. And the avatar, as you can see with my cursor here, they start off first as an intern, then they move on to associate, and they constantly go up the ladder until they become a manager. So it's a much, much more user-friendly assessment there for some of our learners that might be a little cognitively delayed. Then we're going to jump to career clusters. This is one that the user can print out. It's a paper and pencil one there. You have the link below, and this really talks about clusters that would be evident and reliable for the student there, you know, ones that they would be interested in. And it really describes those after taking in consideration the preference and interest there. When we talk about transition, we always want to go first and foremost with what the kiddo is interested in. I was interested in movies, and I guess I can say now we're kind of making a movie because we're recording this, but I didn't end up with exactly what I thought I was going to do. So it's important to start with our interests, but then move on, you know, if it's not something that the kiddo thinks that they're actually going to, you know, want to do as a career. We're going to jump to Career One Stop. Again, you have the link here. You can copy that, or you can click on the actual assessment there, but there are many, many different areas here. And this one rolls off of the American Job Center network, again, online, and the case manager can provide, you know, assignments to that student there. And I would go with, you know, weekly assignments there. In some of the webinars that I've been attending, it's a very, very tough time in society right now. And the last thing we want to do is overwhelm anybody as far as you need to get this, this, and this done today. You know, by giving, you know, weekly assessments there, I think it's a better option there. And to check in, you know, these are some assessments you can do this week. And if they don't get to all of them, that's fine too. You know, we just want to make sure that we're kind of building off of, you know, a little bit of work, then transitioning a few weeks into a whole lot of work for that student. And for a student that might be on that college track, we have one that's called Off to College. It's offtocollege.com. This one here assesses a little bit, but it also is going to help the student do some research on their own. You know, it networks with many, many colleges and universities across the United States there, also community colleges and any tech programs as well. So that one is for our learners that might be interested in doing some further education and training. And then we also want to make sure, you know, we've talked about education and training, we've talked about employment, but we also want to make sure that we get to our other area, which is independent living. And our independent living checklist here, this is a paper and pencil one that the student can print out. And, you know, at the end of this assessment here, the independent living checklist there, it's going to give them some information about what skills that they have and what skills that they can work on as far as independent living. So the Bible, as I call it, for assessment, you know, we gave you some examples there, but if you need further support, you know, some of our friends are teaching multiple disability classrooms that are on the call today. Some of our friends have autistic support classrooms. NTAC has created a wonderful age-appropriate transition toolkit that you will be able to hop on and download here. It has wonderful resources there. So any information that you need that was not in the previous slides, I would direct you to that NTAC toolkit there to get some further assessment information. So we're going to shift gears. That's kind of our assessment information. And then we have some information for those case managers who actually need to provide some self-directed online learning. And Khan Academy has my daughter's busy right now. The one that's not doing violin is actually doing some math on Khan Academy, but we're very, very happy that Khan Academy also has some information on college careers, entrepreneurship, finance courses. The finance courses, I think, are something that we can really start with our secondary transition friends, talking about budgeting, talking about balancing, you know, bank accounts, those type of things there. All free. You know, you're going to go and direct that learner to go to Khan Academy. They can navigate to college careers and more, or you can just click this one here. There is also, and I'm going to fall on my face as I try to pronounce this one, we're going to call it Everfi. Give me a thumbs up if you think that works. Everfi, that's how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm not getting many thumbs up, so maybe I didn't pronounce that one right. But this one here has a unique resource there that's separated by, you know, primary, intermediate, you know, middle school, and then high school education there. So if you navigate to Everfi and then click on high school, and you can also go down a little bit to middle school if you have those kids that are just 14, 15, you know, you're going to find some wonderful remote learning opportunities there that focus on transition, again, using that high school lens to separate the lessons that we have. Scott, beautiful. Thank you for that. I needed that little one there. Awesome. And then we also want to direct you to Texas On Course. This one here has information about, you know, college and career preparation. But again, this is going to be something that you can assign some of your students there with all free accounts. So the other piece, you know, in addition to our assessment piece, in addition to having actual assignments, we also want to make sure that we're involving our families at home. And transition is all about making sure that we're becoming as independent as possible. And that could just be participation in activities that we're all doing. I've noticed that my wife and I feel like, you know, we're just operating a terrible diner, you know, because we make breakfast, we make lunch, we make dinner, we clean up breakfast, we clean up lunch, we clean up dinner, you know, and it just seems like that's all we're doing. So why not involve, you know, students, especially transition age students, in those activities as well, making sure we're ramping up the chores there, getting in our recreation. You know, we have our friend running on the treadmill here. We're making sure we're doing some basketball stuff. And then the one here, volunteering. I know some of our friends are seamstresses, and there's a lot of information online about how to download some patterns to be able to support, you know, our healthcare professionals by making masks, all of those things. But these activities here are going to help that student who's of transition age become independent. And we have some links here on the next slide talking about some virtual museum trips that we can do, virtual field trips that we can do through Google. We also want to direct you to Planet Fitness and their YouTube channel here. If you navigate to that link there, they do have some live videos that are going on, but the ones that I am directing you to are the archived videos there, where you can download and make sure that that student's doing a nice exercise routine. And then the Downward Dog yoga folks also have a free suite of fitness apps as well that's going to really resonate well for those students that might have their own iPad, their iPhone, or if they're an Android user. But again, this stuff is all free. The biggest thing that I can think about to direct our parents and our caregivers for students is just making sure that we have some autonomy for our students who are of transition age, giving them choice, and that can be as simple as a checklist, making sure that, you have this many activities to do today. You can do it in an order that you choose, make sure that we're giving them that choice there to decide how they want to finish their activities in what order. NTAC, we're going to introduce you to some choice boards that they have where there are various activities that they have on the choice board, but today you're going to do one of these activities and then you can cross that one off. Tomorrow you can do another one. And for our learners that again might have some cognitive delays, making sure that they are a part of creating their visual schedule, putting things in order, that's going to give them those necessary transition skills about how to manage their own time. The next slide here is going to take you to an example from NTAC where if they even need to put some of their IEP goals and objectives, the case manager can help with that. But then if we're talking about our secondary transition goals, they can put some information there, and then the family can figure out what supports are actually going to be needed to complete those activities. So that's a daily schedule example for you. We can also talk about those choice boards again. And again, I can't say many enough great things about NTAC because they've separated these into career exploration, education and training, and independent living. And with a click here, you'll be able to download these and it'll give you all the information that you need to help those students do some further assessment, some further research, but also by giving them that autonomy to make those choices. And then finally, Teachers Pay Teachers has many different types of free visual schedules for you to be able to download. The last thing that we want to do is give families more work to do during this time. We don't want them reinventing the wheel either. So if you can direct them, do a search on some visual schedules that would work, head on over to Teachers Pay Teachers and they can print those out. And then the student can help to, figure out in what order they want to do those activities. So some of our next steps that we want to offer you folks, and I do apologize that I'm talking rapidly, but I want to make sure that we give you some time to network here towards the end. But Patton has come across with some wonderful resources specific to the COVID-19 crisis that we're all experiencing. And the URL down here at the bottom, patton.net, leads you directly to the one that's for post-secondary transition. And it's separated into transition for families, students, and also for educators as well. If you visit this link, and then you click home, then you'll be able to see the whole COVID response that they have in terms of, if you needed help with academic supports there, if you needed help with assistive technology, again, specifically related to COVID-19, it's all going to be there for you. The next one here is, again, from our friends at NTAC. A lot of the resources that I shared with you today was from a webinar that I attended, and that was on March 24th. So if you visit the URL here, it gives you all of the events that NTAC has, but just search on the one for March 24th, and it'll have all the materials that you can download, and also you'll be able to download and watch the webinar. And then finally, the IU that I am employed by, IU17, is working very hard, and I'm going to shout out our buddy, Mr. Ringkamp, our buddy, Miss Gibney, and our buddy, Miss Hamilton. They are all hosting wonderful webinars that we're having, each and every day, Monday through Friday. Fridays are more of a coffee and conversation. But I believe after the Easter holiday, we're also going to be having virtual office hours. And if you navigate to this URL here at the bottom, that's going to bring you to our resource guide. My office hours specific to secondary transition are going to meet Mondays and Wednesdays from 9 to 10, and Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 2. And I will just have a Zoom link open. I just ask that you don't hijack that by coming on with the Bozo the Clown wig. We did have that at another IU a few days ago. Somebody used that URL and they kind of took charge of that, conversation there. But that link will be off of that website there, and you'll be able to find the times that I will be available. And if you had any questions on transition, how to provide opportunities to students, any questions about the IEP process, reviews and revisions, that's how you can get a hold of me. And you can also get a hold of me by calling my phone number and my extension here. Even though I'm not in the office, that sends an email to me with your voicemail, and also always by email as well. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen by hitting stop share. And that should bring us back to the Brady Bunch. And we'll open it up for any questions or concerns. We have about 5 minutes or so, I guess. So do I unmute our friend Scott, or do they unmute themselves, or how do we do this?
I've given them the ability to unmute themselves. So if you guys want to ask questions, you can unmute yourselves at this time and ask them, or you can post them in the chat and we'll answer them that way. So yeah, go ahead, ask away.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just as far as transition meetings go, do you recommend that we attempt to hold them virtually? Do you recommend we wait till the beginning of next school year and just have those students that maybe weren't transitioned? We transition all our 11th graders through a formal meeting.
Right.
What do you recommend? Does the state recommend anything?
So again, when we go back to that first or second slide, the coordinated set of activities, and Miss McGeehan here, my friends, is speaking to you from the Williamsport Area School District, a very large district. I believe we have 15, 16 monthly transition staffing meetings a year with 7 students, so I can't do the math. But for a district your size, it's under that coordinated set of activities. So the state and IDEA is not going to say, yes, you Williamsport has to have these staffing meetings. It's always a great recommendation. Because of your numbers being so big, I don't know if it's necessarily a virtual meeting. I would be all for it. Some of our agency friends could certainly get together virtually, but I'm just thinking about some of our families might not have the resources, might not have the internet capabilities. But what we can do is put together some sort of, virtual folder, and maybe even a video that we record, and we can go through our spiel. This is what secondary transition is. If you're this age, we want to encourage you to reach out to these agencies. Please click this link here. It'll download these resources. That way you can say that your district transitioned those students. They went through a staffing. That way you can still mark those students off as counted, but you can still give the family the option if you wanted to have an in-person meeting, next year, that would be fine as well. But I would say a best practice would be to still hold the meeting in some capacity, maybe just sharing a link. That would be my best, case scenario there. And we're fortunate to have 2 of our other IU TACs there. So Brian and Ryan, if you all have any input on, are you guys doing staffing meetings currently, or what does that look like at your IUs?
Hey, Jeff. This is Brian. Hello, everybody from IU 11. We are doing a lot of Zoom meetings with our special ed directors. So we're meeting with the directors and seeing what they're doing within their districts, and then supporting those directors and their needs within the district. IU 11 does have resources on their website, www.tiu11.org. As an educator, we always beg, borrow, and steal things. So feel free to get on that website and steal from us whatever you want. There are parent resources. There's a teacher resource link, and there's a remote learning resource link. When you go on the website, it'll pop up automatically. That's the first thing you'll see. And feel free to navigate through those and use them as you need to.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and this is Ryan Gillum, IU 10. I think there's going to be some information forthcoming from the state, the Bureau of Special Education, maybe tomorrow, as far as what needs to take place with regard to IEP meetings, and so I would be on the lookout for further guidance on what you need to do, even while we're at this kind of work from home status. Near future. Yep.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Brian put that link to his resources in the chat, and also Kathy Stye from OBR, and I'm not sure, oh, yep, she's still here. She's saying that they're going to be able to start doing remote meetings you know, so I'm thinking again, Susan, with your specific Williamsport students, you know, if we had to Zoom in, I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, you know, so if we could always have a meeting, you know, with OVR, with myself as the transition consultant, but I would really say it's up to you all, but just as long as it's counted under that coordinated set of activities.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm looking at my friend Christy Warren from Northern Tier Career Center. So what are things looking like as far as students who are attending CTEs?
They're rolling out just enrichment activities, from videos to the flip boards. A lot of our instructors do. They've been doing those, so the kids know how to do those. I'm looking up industry exams that they can actually do at home that don't have to be proctored.
Yeah.
Fortunately, a lot of ours do, but we're looking at other alternatives at this time.
Okay. And that NOCD was waived along with the PSSA and the Keystone. So
Yes.
okay. All right.